Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
Hello?
It's Charlie.
Gobbledygook.
Ecks is gonna win.
Sever's gonna win.
Ecks is the best.
Sever is the best.
Who are you talking about?
I actually don't know who Ecks or Sever are.
Ecks? I thought you were saying eggs.
Hey, explosion always takes me by surprise. That explosion.
we were.
Hello.
You just saw us in cartoon form, and now we hear. Now we hear.
Now we hear. That's right. We had sex with Gabriel Byrne, and now we're human beings.
Traditionally, seamless opening to the show. Hey,
Seamless.
Yep. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of FlopTV. This one about Ballistic, Ecks versus Sever, a film that with a title so inexplicable, I thought to myself, maybe it's an anagram of something. And there were a lot of anagrams of Ballistic, Ecks versus Sever. None of them really jumped out at me. They're all pretty good. I encourage you all to do your own research, form your own opinion.
Oh, so that was more of a prompt for a take-home activity rather than you setting up a bit.
Well, the funny thing was, I was going to set up a bit, but there were too many good options. But the thing is, I was like, maybe back when
you're right. Don't give us the good stuff.
Maybe back when the movie was just called Ecks versus Sever, because it's my understanding that the Ballistic came later.
Yeah, because they wanted to clarify.
They wanted to clarify what this movie was.
I love the idea. Not to interrupt any longer on this note, but I love the idea of a talk show host being like, you see, there's a lot of funny headlines in the news these days. We found a lot of good ones, so find some for yourself. Anyway, moving on.
Go back to it, but it's really not actually.
Well, those are really good. Is that who? Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah, that's my
Seth
David
Meyers.
Letterman?
Yeah.
Oh, got a lot of funny things today. Tonight on Seth Meyers.
Graham Norton. Is that a Graham Norton impression?
Yeah.
The ultimate point was, in this quest to make it make sense, I was like, okay, the original title is Ecks versus Sever. Let me try that alone in the old anagram machine. And you know what? No anagrams found.
Wow.
So
that's why they added the Ballistic to it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, 0% on Rotten Tomatoes and no anagrams.
Yeah. And how many bananagrams?
I got a couple right behind me, thanks to the Writers Guild of America. This is a thing that Elliot knows. The Writers Guild Awards, their goodie bag every year contains
you get your own copy of bananagrams. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so glad we're already talking about goodie bags. It's kind of like a little teaser for my my presentation, guys. So what do we do here on this show?
Dan, talk about the show. What's this show?
It's pretty good. I don't know. I mean, there are other ones that I personally might enjoy.
How do I get out of this thing? How do I leave?
The show is a show where we talk about bad movies. We watch a bad movie, we talk about them. This season on FlopTV, a new thing we've been doing. We've been watching a lot of films that we invoke on the show, but haven't necessarily seen.
Like demons, we've invoked them enough that now they've come to haunt us. Yeah.
And a lot of these have been mostly title-based fascinations, not necessarily movies.
Yeah.
That have a lot of entertainment otherwise, but
certainly I would not have mentioned Hot Dog the movie so many times if I had known, as we found out in that episode, that it's a skiing movie and not about hot dogs.
Yeah. If it had a fucking normal name.
But we talk about bad movies.
They should have called that movie Ski Bums. Why didn't they call it that?
Like Snow Obsession or something.
Snow Obsession sounds like kind of a polar Showtime After Dark film.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It would be weird because maybe Shannon Tweed would be in it.
Yeah. So we
just like Hot Dog. Yeah.
Ecks versus Sever. We'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Before that, though.
Well, I'll say, and after that, we'll get questions from the audience.
Yes.
But before we do any of those things, what's happening now?
we're gonna have Stuart do a presentation for us on a topic that we know nothing about yet. These are all surprises to each other.
Okay, I guess that's my cue. Wow, what a perfect lead-in. Thank you, Dan. Thanks for warming up that audience. Shark, can you help me?
Better than I thought.
Help me with this.
Uh-oh.
So Stuart, so is this are we getting a regular? Now, usually Flophouse presentations are slideshows, PowerPoints.
1 second. I need you to help me with the table.
Oh, you're doing your show now?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
What a reveal.
You gotta get that side of the table. Okay.
That's just what Charlene always wears under her bathrobe. Interesting. I feel like I'm watching a morning talk show where they're about to show us like the hottest holiday gifts.
So we're right in the middle of the holiday party season, everybody.
Oh wow.
And one of those perfect kinds of events, Dan McCoy knows what I'm talking about, is a party for the big game, a big match. Like a showdown between two heavyweights. And I don't think we've had two heavier weights than Ecks and Sever.
I'm sorry, Stuart. Stuart, we're in the holiday season. We just came off of Thanksgiving. We're going into Christmas.
And Hanukkah, Dan. Hanukkah comes first. Daniel.
Themed. Sure, yes. Hanukkah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Guys,
other holidays that are not part of that same family of holidays, I'm sure, yeah.
Guys, I've had a hard week. I'm a little overwhelmed. Just let me try and get through this, okay? Okay.
Cannot promise.
Like I was saying, I'm going to be showing you how that you, or you at home, or you can throw your own Ballistic Ecks versus Sever watch party, okay? Everybody with me? Let's see.
I don't know who the third you was, but sure.
The
viewers at home.
Okay, wait. Okay.
But so said you at home.
So the first thing you're going to need is party favors. That's going to catch the eye, right?
That's the first thing you need?
Yeah. So the first thing at your party, we're going to talk about party favors. Here's one of my favorites. We have pennants for Ecks or Sever, an X or an S. So you
now
can
that's certainly the sound. I'll say X's name starts with an E. It's an easy mistake to make, but it's actually written in the title.
What?
It's X, like ECKS, the common name X. Maybe it's just coming to me because it's my initials, ECK.
Like imagine Bill the cat was saying ack, but there was an E instead of an A, and there was an S at the end. That's the easiest.
That's the easiest way. Dan found the easiest way to explain it. No simpler way. Occam's razor. Occam's Bill the cat.
We have pennants. I guess you could do an E instead of an X, but I feel like X kind of says what we're trying to say.
Sure. Okay.
Let's see. Another little party favor you can, in the case that you're throwing like a fancy party with napkins.
A fancy Ecks versus Sever watching party.
Yeah, you can make a little napkin holder like this one. It's kind of goth, kind of like the Matrix.
What's that made out of?
Feather on it. And I don't want to shock you, but this is the sort of thing that you can make at home with only a few household ingredients and maybe some crafting. But everyone has those. I know you guys are surprised, but yeah, I've had some practice doing this, so yeah.
Doing what aspect of this?
Hosting
you didn't even explain what the common items you would use to make it work.
Well, you know, feather is involved.
Paper roll, some lace, staples, and a feather. Okay. So now it's a party. You're going to have some hungry people on your hands, right? Everybody loves to eat, so we're going to talk about.
They need to survive.
So because it's a party, of course you're going to need to have party mix because it's a party, right? Let's see. This is also a movie-based.
So party mix, no explanation. Just whatever. Just mix some
the
stuff.
Resolution of
party mix on the fucking bag, dude.
Okay.
So we're the next one is it's a movie-based thing. So you gotta have popcorn, right? You just got
sure. Yeah.
Now you're probably wondering, is that just regular popcorn? No. This is themed popcorn because it is in fact extreme butter flavor. Extreme butter flavor.
And the letter X not actually in the name X.
Now, Stuart, do you bring out that package to show to the guests just so they
so they get it.
The theming?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see.
I assumed it's better than my assumption was that the popcorn was going to be mixed up with bullet casings because there's so many shots fired in the movie.
Yeah. Speaking of shots, that's a word that begins with S. So does the name Sever. And so to represent Sever, we have little cookies in the shape of an S.
Okay.
Perfect, right?
Yeah, that does it.
Delicious.
It does it.
I couldn't find anything in the shape of an X, but I got
Or an E.
Well, I got a bowl of wagon wheel pretzels that are kind of shaped like an
Yeah,
X.
you can bite the outside of that.
Sure.
It's kind of an X-y shape. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, because...
Again, the letter X not relevant to the character, but sure.
Now, if you got a little bit of a sweet tooth and you want to capture the feeling of two spies, world-class... Are they spies?
Kind of.
I mean, they both... Well, one's an FBI agent, one's a spy, I guess.
Wait, let me stop you. I don't actually care.
Okay.
So, but if we have two spies that are facing each other, there's no treat that better captures that feeling than classic New York item, a black and white cookie, right?
Which side is X
Spy
and which
versus
side
spy.
is Sever? Yeah.
You're gonna have to find it. I think that's up for the viewer to decide. So,
Okay, wow.
finally, you can't.
So just one black and white cookie for the party?
No, there's a bunch of them. I didn't bring them all out here.
I couldn't see. I couldn't see. I don't know.
The strip. Each strip has to have both black and white on it.
Oh yeah, cut it across lengthwise. Don't cut it down, or else you'll lose the message. Yeah.
This isn't the fucking table from Pan's Labyrinth, Elliot.
I hope not. I don't want to wake up a guy who holds his eyeballs in his palms.
Okay, so one final little treat in the case that you're throwing a fancy party. Remember, you can't spell ballistic without balls, and there isn't a fancier ball in the world than a giant Ferrero Rocher ball.
There's no fancier ball?
None.
No.
Impossible. Name one, Dan. Name one.
Dan, there's no fancier ball.
In a fancy dress ball, everyone just dresses up like the Roro Rocher. What's it called again?
Ferrero Rocher.
Ferrero Rocher.
Everybody's been chowing down, snacking down at your party. They got a mouthful of food. They need something to wash that shit down. So you're gonna have two bespoke cocktails. Starting with Ecks, we have a delicious Oaxacan old fashioned here. Because there's an X in there.
There's an X. Again, not that. Yeah, well, I made my point.
So
I don't need to continue.
So that's, of course, that's going to be mezcal, tequila, a little bit of agave syrup, and a couple of dashes of some special habanero syrup for a little bit of extra kick, just like in this movie.
Do they kick a lot in the movie? I guess there are high kicks. Yeah, sure. Sever does that mostly, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's good. For Sever,
some sort of S-shaped cocktail.
I don't have a Sever.
A Smartini?
Can I introduce you into a 7? That's right. We're gonna make a 7 and 7.
Okay.
So you take
Sever and Sever.
You take your Seagram 7. You just kind of pour it.
This also works for the film Lucky Number 11 too. You can use this cocktail.
Or the movie 7.
You got your 7-Up. Branded soda.
Or
That's
7 Chances,
hey,
the Buster Keaton movie.
Hey guys, make 7-Up yours. Remember that?
I was just thinking about that commercial the other day and considered talking to my kids about it and decided not to.
The thing I remember about that commercial is Sever right
yeah, is that people walking towards him and getting offended, even though all they would have seen was the words "make 7."
Okay, so as you mentioned earlier about gift bags. Once everybody's full and drunk and they've enjoyed their movie, they're going to want something to take home to remember that evening by. That's why
of course.
You gotta have to have a gift basket or a gift bag. Let's see what's going to be in this gift bag. Looks like some of my bank statements.
Okay, how is that themed to the movie exactly?
I don't know. I have what's this? A little cactus? I think it's fake.
Okay, so you need one of those for each of the party attendees.
Got a looks like a ashtray with a pot leaf on it.
Okay.
Oh, and of course, some reading material. That's right, a copy of Opposable Thumbs by author Matt Singer. You can just get to the page where Roger Ebert talks about how much he loves Ballistic, Ecks versus Sever.
There's a chapter about it, yeah.
Okay, so
Chapter
I feel like
7.
now I have given you all the ammunition you'll need to throw your own perfect party for Ballistic Ecks versus Sever.
A thing that
Oh, okay. Let's get to the movie, gang.
I think you almost burst the blood vessel in my head.
Once again, Stuart has reinvented the presentation in a way that makes us question the form while giving us no information to take home. Beautiful. Excellent work, Charlene. Excellent assisting.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Stuart, for that.
Oh yeah, I figured.
Wow.
You know, you guys only gave me like a week to throw something together.
Is that? I mean, you've known that you were going to be doing this for, I think, 5 months now.
How do you communicate that through email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
Check
was.
my email. Grandpa.
You're right. I should
Okay.
have TikToked you. I guess that's how the
Thank
young people
you.
talk now. Yeah.
Mhm.
Slid into his lifting DMs.
Yes, please. I read those.
Hey, let's get into Ecks versus Sever.
Let's get ballistic, guys. Let's do it.
That's ostensibly why we're here. Now, this movie has
That's extensively, yeah.
this has the distinction of being the lowest rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes. There are movies that also have a 0%, but like this one is a 0% with over 100 ratings. So
Yes, including both, I think, the theater critics and DVD critics, I believe.
yeah.
Did you
Which
guys
some
see
other
this bad
places-
boy when he was in theaters?
I did not. A friend of mine claims to have seen it in the theaters, possibly with me, but I did not see it in the theaters. No, so no.
Was there a fast food tie-in through like Taco Bell or something?
There was a Game Boy game. I know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
I tried to look that up to see if there was anything there for us to use, and it just looked like, like a Wolfenstein kind of, like it didn't seem like there was much going on.
Yeah, I've heard it's a fine game. I've heard it's
Yeah.
okay, but I don't know that there was an Ecks versus Sever, like either a Happy Meal toy set or like a cup that you could get at Burger King. I don't think there were any. This was pre. Speaking of Matt Singer again, pre-Matt Singer tasking himself with eating all of the merchandise food that arrives with every movie. So unfortunately, he can't help us with that.
Guys,
records are.
we have to pray for Matt because the fucking Wonka menu is nuts.
And he's got to eat it all of it.
He's got children, guys.
They won't have a dad for long, but he'll die doing what he loved, eating crap that has a movie loosely attached to it.
Maybe the success of the aforementioned opposable thumbs, which I'm seeing great reviews for everywhere, and I enjoyed it very much myself when I read it. Maybe that will catapult him out of the having to eat novelty food.
No, Dan, at this point, he's not doing it because he has to. He's doing it because he needs to. He wants to so badly. It's become a craving. And they say, by the light of the full moon, if he doesn't eat movie novelty tie-in food, he becomes the Masked Singer. Some sort of vigilante, I guess,
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Well, let's get into this movie because
I think we did. That's Ballistic Ecks versus Sever, everybody.
That's pretty plot heavy, right?
Yeah.
While this movie is pretty simple, it's also confusing. So let us
like a good magic trick.
Yeah. Let's begin.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was producing Ecks versus Sever.
This movie, directed by Chaos, by the way, that's how he's billed on this film. Not a joke, true.
Chaos. No, he's of course, his name is White Chaos Yananda, I believe is his name, but it's but he goes under Chaos in this one.
Anyway,
guys, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
It is. If it was a good movie, that'd be a cool director name.
Yeah.
As it is a very bad movie, it opens itself up to jokes.
It's up there with Catwoman being directed by Pitoff.
So this is
directed Catwoman.
Why is it that the directors who don't use traditional names make not great movies? Like McG is probably the best of that.
Yeah,
of that crowd,
true.
right?
Damning with faint praise.
Exactly. So what is it about directors where they're like, I'm not going to be able to wow people with my talent. I guess I'll give myself a dumb name.
Hey man, apparently you got this movie made. There's no other possible reason. Like these are not characters that people know.
That's the thing.
Attachment to. It makes it sound like these are like, oh, finally that underground comic about Ecks and Sever is coming to the screen. No, there's no Pre-existing
nothing.
material.
That's the question that I keep getting from people when I talk to them about how we're doing this movie. Is they say, "Oh, well, what's it based on? Who are these characters?" Nothing. It's all original, but it's presented as if you're like, finally, Ecks and Sever are going to fight each other. Like when they released King Kong versus Godzilla, they hadn't made that many Godzilla movies, but Godzilla was a famous character. King Kong, of course, a classic icon of film. So like people were like, oh shit, they're going to fight. But with Ecks and Sever, it's not. Nobody's been demanding this. You know?
Yeah, confusion was more of the reaction, but
And
anyway.
the tagline was "Whoever wins, we lose." Right?
I think it was whoever watches, they lose.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
by
like
God, we're gonna get to this fucking movie.
Never.
It starts with a private plane arriving. It's got a kid on it. His mom is waiting for him, but before they are able to go home, their car is stopped by a security team that takes the kid. The kid's Michael Gant. They want him to go with them to his father, Robert Gant.
The very real, sounds like a name, last name of Gant. Yeah.
Yeah, we will learn that Robert Gant is the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is an agency that I thought initially was made up just for this movie, but it is a real intelligence agency.
Yeah.
But the security doesn't help because Michael is.
That's the kind of deep research that was put into the film Ballistic, Ecks versus
Yeah.
Sever.
They're like, Defense Intelligence Agency. That sounds cool, kind of. Let's put it in. Security doesn't help. Michael is kidnapped right away by Lucy Liu, who, as it turns out, this is Sever. If you only tuned in to figure out who Ecks is and who Sever is,
Time
Lucy
to dip,
Liu is Sever.
Yeah.
So good night, everyone.
Gonna see you later. Yeah.
But we meet Ecks just right after that. Turns out Ecks is Antonio Banderas. His name is Jeremiah Ecks.
Although
Jeremiah Ecks. Although the IMDb plot summary lists him as Jonathan Ecks.
And in the movie, he's also referred to as Jeremy at one point.
Mm.
So,
Jeremiah
but he's not Jonah Hex. He must be like a descendant of Jonah Hex.
Yeah.
Who's named Jeremiah Ecks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah,
not
he changed
real
his name
sex.
at Ellis Island.
At Ellis Island when he left the country and then came back again.
I tried other places. I'm
They're
back.
like, sir, you're an American citizen. You're an Old West cowboy. Or gunslinger. You don't have to come back through Ellis Island.
Gotta change me.
You know what? I've changed so much in my time abroad. It was a real era of personal awakening. I feel like I'm a new person now. Yeah.
Well, Ecks was a former FBI agent.
A real Rochelle experience for Jonah Hex.
He used to be part of the FBI. He retired after his wife Rain got killed in a car bombing, which we will later see after this scene in flashback as Antonio Banderas walks through the rain, thinking about rain, through the rain, thinking about rain.
Love it.
And they cut to a car exploding 5 times. They just keep cutting back from a car explosion to the rain.
There's a surprising amount of padding in this movie. And I don't mean Paddington, the lovable bear who can't get enough marmalade and is always getting into mischief. I mean like padding, like they realize at a certain point the movie is not long enough. They've got to fill it with stuff.
Now, would you keep a marmalade-based sandwich in your hat? Because to me, that's like one of the top 10 worst places.
I'm going to give you 2 answers. 1, no. 2, but I'm a person. I'm not a whimsical bear.
Yeah.
But the thing is, my head is becoming more and more bald. So if anything, it's a good place to keep a marmalade sandwich. It's not going to get sticky in my hair. But a bear is covered with fur. That marmalade's going to get sticky in his fur. So maybe I should keep them in my hat.
I feel like when like ants and bugs and shit are attracted to all the marmalade in his fur, I feel like Paddington will just make friends with him.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
He's a magical little man.
Not a man, a bear.
So Ecks gets lured back to do one last job. His former boss at the FBI wants him to investigate Gant.
This scene, I just want to stop for a moment and say this movie is a very generic movie. It feels like they just they wrote movie on a DVD and threw it into a DVD player. And literally, he's a broken down FBI agent because he's sitting at a bar drinking. 2 guys come up to him. He literally says, "How'd you find me?" Which is ridiculous. And then he fights them, and then his boss walks over and is like, "Ecks, I need you." And he's like, "Why didn't the boss just walk over in the first place? Like, why?" It's structured like a movie scene and not like a thing that would ever happen.
You got to prove how fucking tough he is, though, for the audience.
Yeah,
I guess so, but it's not the highest bar that he clears in just like beating up 2 guys. Yeah.
Well, but also the way that his boss, encourages him to come back and do this job for him is by saying, "I have evidence your wife is still alive. I'll give it to you if you help me." And I'm like, this is pretty cruel.
Yeah,
boss.
it's a cruel intention.
Yeah. Anyway, so
He's
that
not a good.
happened.
He's a horrible boss, you might say. Dan, I need more movie titles.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the boss? That's a TV show. Sever has Michael.
I'm sure it's being rebooted as a movie right now with Chris Pine in the Tony Danza role, or Chris Pratt in the Tony Danza role, or Chris Pratt as Tony Danza and Chris Pine as Judith Light. Who's gonna play Mona? A different Chris Hemsworth, maybe.
Alyssa Milano will be Judith Light in this version. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's called Who's the Boss? The Next Generation, I guess.
Yes.
And they're on a spaceship.
Seems like a weird title for a movie, but I'll go along with it.
Well, it's a Peacock original. So anyways, where were we? Sever has Michael in some sort of high-tech cage room. Meanwhile, his dad, Robert,
he's a dangerous little boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she works and operates inside of what Roger Ebert in his review refers to as a smoke and flame factory.
Yeah.
Just an industrial site that is very dangerous. There's a lot of catwalks. She has this kind of elaborate computer system that seems to be not really supported by much furniture, you know.
Yes. It's a regular Sever cave that she has. Meanwhile, Gant kills the only remaining member of his security team for losing his son using the old reverse gun trick.
Explain this reverse gun. This is a very funny moment.
Well, he's like, "You failed me. You've got to shoot yourself like you're an old samurai or whatever." And he's like, "No, I'm gonna shoot you." And then, of course, it's a reverse.
And the gun, he points the gun at Gant, and the bullet fires backwards through his own head.
Yeah,
which is a funny thing to do because it's one of those. It's a movie thing where it's like, so you had to guess exactly what he was going to do.
Yeah, you're just toying with him. You got to do that. Like I was thinking, like, what if he did try and shoot himself and then he shot the guy next to him?
Or shot Gant. What if he's like, "You're right," and Gant's like, "No."
Do it normal style. Don't do it weird style.
Why are you pointing it like this? That doesn't make sense. Anyway,
I will say, so at this point, where Lucy Liu has not delivered a single line at this point, it's kind of weird. Gant is played by character actor, Greg Henry? Is that his name?
The villain, spoiler alert, is Body Double.
Great. He is great. He's great in Body Double. He's great all the time. When you see him, you're like, that dude is a fucking piece of shit.
He plays a good slime ball.
So well.
Yeah. I will say that Lucy Liu, who I feel like does not communicate the gravitas that this character, I think, needs to be carrying.
I mean,
I feel like our two leads both, like, all their charisma is hidden under something.
Yeah, they are both.
Yes,
they're both terrific performers who are just lost.
Ill-served by everything involved. This movie
whereas Greg Henry's like, I know the exact kind of fucking movie this is.
Well, and I feel like the movie is trying so hard to be like a Hong Kong style movie. You know, where there's like big melodrama, big action, but the action is surprisingly tiny, and the melodrama comes out of nowhere. I mean, in Hong Kong movies, often it comes out of nowhere too, but it never reaches the highs that it needs to.
Well, I think the director even said that like Chow Yun-fat was one of his first choices, and I'm like, no shit, dude.
The original
you want
casting,
this to be hard boiled too.
Yeah, the original casting that he wanted was apparently Chow Yun-fat versus Jean Reno. That basically would be the professional versus the killer, which this movie would have still been bad, but that would have been such an amazing pairing to see the two of them going against each other. And
as long as we're talking about behind the scenes stuff, who knows what?
It's time for Behind Ballistic, hosted by Dan McCoy. This is the special segment where Dan McCoy gives us the real behind-the-scenes goss about Ecks versus Sever. Did Ecks and Sever actually get along behind the scenes? Was it all made up? Let's find out with Dan McCoy in Behind the Ballistic. Ballistic, gotta get behind it. Ballistic, gonna remind it. Ballistic, let's go and see about Ballistic.
Information I don't have.
Here's Dan McCoy. Okay, Dan.
Let me give the fact I do have instead of the made-up one, is I don't know whether this is just like self-serving, revision
or soft serve
on the director's part, but the director claims that this movie was taken from him by the producers and re-edited without his input. And while there's no way of knowing for sure, I find it very easy to believe, just because I find it hard to believe that anyone would have directed the movie to be the way it is now.
Yes. And that director, I haven't seen his other movies. He's made other movies, so it's not like this was the only movie that this guy ever made. I mentioned to my managers that I was doing this movie on this episode, and that they said the story that they heard, which is the story you hear about a lot of bad movies, is that it was really all about money laundering and was never meant to be a very good movie to begin with. But I don't know about that.
Interesting.
It was produced by what's his name? By a movie producer named
The
Eli,
devil.
named Eli or Eli Samaha, who produced a lot. Also produced the Battlefield Earth and the Boondock Saints, among other things, and was married to Tia Carrere for a little bit. So,
cool.
so he's a Hollywood person. You know, it's not a one-off thing. So we'll see.
Okay. Well,
speaking of money laundering, in my hometown there is a fast food chain, a local chain called Penguin Point that had a penguin mascot, but it never seemed to be open. But there was a bunch of them around town, and I was sure it was some kind of mob front. So if you know, just sound off in the chat or in the Q&A section. Thank you.
So around this time, we learned that the FBI is investigating Gant because they believe he stole this nanotechnology that he is like the agency invented, that where you can inject people with this nanobot to give them heart attacks whenever you want, which seems less effective than just shooting them.
Yes, it seems like not the best way. I guess if you want to make it look
if you
natural,
want to cover it up, yes, but
it is a very elaborate and expensive way to do something that is already done very easily and well using existing materials.
I think that there are probably some poisons that could be. Anyway,
it's
really quaint. It's a really quaint time in America when they're like, you know what? People want to disguise the shady shit they do instead of just doing it.
Instead of just doing it,
nobody cares.
But it does remind me about a recent thing I read about the stuff they say about AI's AI bot, where they're like, it's already at the point where it can do basic math, and someone made the point that a calculator that runs on a solar cell can also do basic math very well.
Well, not its own. But I guess the thing.
I mean,
anyway.
you still have to tell the OpenAI bot to do it, you know.
All right. Anyway, by the way, I said this to my co-host, but I want to say this to you, the audience at home. To whatever degree I understand the plot of Ecks versus Sever is because I, one, watched the movie, and then two, had to write out a synopsis of the movie with the aid of the Wikipedia synopsis and me scrolling through the file of the movie as I went.
Like the Zapruder film, but for fake shootings.
Yeah, it's not. It's a very incoherent movie.
Tell us more about it. We'll stop interrupting you. Wink.
Ecks is briefed on Sever, which sets up, of course, the verses of the title that never really materializes that
for a couple minutes.
Guys, when do they fucking verse?
Let's get to the verse, Dan.
And then it doesn't happen that long. But we learned that Sever was trained to be some sort of super assassin, blah blah blah. It's the same bullshit that's always in these movies.
There's a little bit of probably some kind of racism there, where the idea is that she was as a girl growing up in China, she was thrown away by her family who wanted a boy, and the government raised her to be a super assassin.
Yeah. And at this point, there's a big shootout between Sever and Gant's men. And I have to say that the first time I watched this movie, I'm like, why is this happening?
That's a very good question. Yeah.
And I was sure I missed something. And then I went back and I'm like, no, it's not really clear. It seems to be mostly just that like Gant's men are following Sever at this point, and so start shooting. I don't really know, but there's a long gunfight.
It makes a lot of sense that Sever, who is a creature of the shadows, she slips in and kills someone and slips out again, decides that instead of just walking away, which she has several
wears like a tactical trench coat with like
Yeah.
guns and shit strapped to her, and
and every time she has a chance to walk away, she instead begins shooting again, and it's like, just leave.
Pulls out a fucking bazooka most of the time.
Yeah.
She spends a lot of time firing missiles at people, and then when there's a truck mounted machine gun, and instead of leaving, she decides to jump behind that and start firing it at them.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I fired one of those once. It's pretty cool. You feel very powerful, and then you feel bad afterwards.
Anyway, the important thing
masturbating
that I should tell you,
it's like, yeah, exactly, but masturbating like big, like really big, and in my case, into a big pile of sand.
I don't feel fucking bad, man. It's part of being a human, or any animal for that matter. Anyway,
any animal, like a starfish, Dan.
Jerk it, people. Why did I do that? Let's see.
You finally, for the first time, something you cared about, a true personal passion, came up in conversation.
My cause. Let's see. Where am I here? Oh, Ray Park is one of Gant's goons.
Yeah,
He
he's
gets
the main
a lot
goon.
of fucking screen time.
He does.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the time when Ray Park was going to be the big thing in genre films. He was going to play Iron Fist. He was going to play all these other. He was going to play all these other characters, and none of that really happened.
Hey guys, do you know? Do you remember what happens when a toad gets hit by lightning? Same thing as anything else.
Oh,
You delivered it better than Storm did.
Yeah.
Um,
So it makes a car drive 88 miles per hour and break the time barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there's more of a long gunfight. It's not really that thrilling. Sever runs away. Ecks investigates the scene and he sees that she's propped a window open with an automatic rifle, and he calls his boss. He's like, she's not done, she's coming back. And the boss doesn't believe him, but Ecks is like, I have a gut feeling. I'm like, tell him about the fucking evidence. Like, why are you like saying I have a gut feeling? Say I saw a thing.
You should call it evidence.
Yeah. But anyway, that boss gets shot by Sever, although later on, like, we find it just missed his heart, which is like an indication that maybe Sever isn't as bad as she seems. Although
now, Dan,
she doesn't miss.
I have a question for you, Dan. Why does Sever shoot him?
I have no idea. And we're supposed to later on be like, oh, it's okay, she just missed his heart. I'm like, you can just miss his heart by a lot more. Like,
I mean, by the easiest way to miss someone's heart is to not shoot them when you have no reason to do it. And it's another thing where it's like all she has to do is
that's
leave.
what my Valentine's Day card said. Well, anyway, so she shoots that guy whose name I forget. Sorry, that guy. And there's a chase, and there's some fight choreography that feels like it's really like in slow motion. Like, I think that they actually do slow down some of the footage, and I'm like, what are you doing, guys? Like,
I feel like a lot of the action sequences, I've read somewhere where the director said that the cut that the studio saw and then took away from him was like a super rough. He just shot the script, and it feels like a lot of the action scenes have just not been edited. Like it is all the slowest possible delivery of everything.
And it's too bad because it makes it look like the leads just are not that good at this kind of fight choreography. And I'm sure that if it was edited properly, they would look better. Like, movies make people look better at things. But having months ago, having watched Yes, Madam, that was playing in my head the whole time this was going on, where I'm like, I can never look at this kind of like clumsy fighting stuff again without and be satisfied, you know.
But part of what makes that fight in Yes, Madam so awesome is how well it's edited to like a very specific rhythm.
Yes, very
and
much so.
this movie is not edited to that rhythm.
Yeah.
No.
Although there is constant, we haven't talked about this yet, but I feel like one of the things about this movie is the like omnipresent, very intense score.
Yes.
There's not that
And
much
it's all
dialogue
like,
in this movie. It is the same composer as The Matrix, and this score is working overtime, and I can't tell if it is the worst score I've ever heard in a movie, or it's the best part because it's really trying for something.
I think it is a little bit of both. It's again similar to our leads. I feel like it's working so hard to do something with nothing that it comes off looking pathetic instead of cool. But the score is trying so hard to convince you that this movie is cool, these characters are cool. It's just like The Matrix.
Every time Lucy Liu walks out, there's like a choir of angels singing in the background.
And then like you'll have a voice every now and then that goes, "Here we go," you know, or like, "This is the show," something like that. And it's like, but we're not going to any
rules. When I do shit, I want a guy saying that.
It's like 90s techno, like just like all came flooding back to me.
When I first started, that's when I first started watching
cha-cha slide in the background.
When I first started watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is the most 90s movie I think I've ever seen." But it's not. It's the most, because it's from 2002. It's the most early 2000s 90s fumes movie I think I've ever seen. It's trying so hard to be like a cool movie from 1999, and it's 2002.
Is that
like,
cool movie The Matrix? Is that the one?
Yes, I mean that cool movie is The Matrix. Yeah.
Well, anyway, Sever escapes. Ecks goes to check on one of his FBI buddies. Got shot earlier, but was wearing a vest. Blah blah blah. Back in Sever's lair, she extracts the nanobot from the kid and puts it in a bullet. And, meanwhile, Ecks hacks into some information.
Seems unnecessary.
Yeah.
Until you find out what's going to happen later.
Into some info about Sever. But he's interrupted by the local cops who come in with a trumped up charge of him being the one who shot his boss. And blah, blah,
I was
blah.
very confused at this point. I had to rewind it twice because I'm like,
Yeah.
How could they have confused this part?
Yes, and why, like him getting, it's a way of, I guess, the bad guys being able to get him somewhere that they can talk to him, like
Yeah.
because then Ray Park goes in and talks to him, but they get nothing out of it. Nobody gets
Yeah.
anything out of this interaction at all, except for it gives Sever a way, an opportunity to help Ecks, right?
Well, that's
Dan?
what I was about to get. My next line in my notes is there's a bunch of irrelevant stuff in here. So we'll skip ahead to X being prisoner transported,
Mhm.
but Sever attacks the transport. Is she trying to kill him or is she trying to break him out? Who knows? We'll find out soon, because then there's a long motorcycle chase, which is the only part of the movie that's kind of cool. Like, I thought this chase was kind of cool. There's a double
right.
like car flip at the end of it that I
Yeah,
like.
The double car
cars
flip
flip
is
over, yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's another example of an action sequence where it feels like it just didn't get edited in a way to make it look cool to me.
Yeah.
I do like that they set up that like a guy on a motorcycle wipes out and the bike goes skittering away, and I'm like, Antonio Banderas is going to steal that bike, right?
Yeah. But X catches up to Sever, but she doesn't kill him. She tells him to ask Gant about his wife and gives him, I think, an address. It was
Yes.
okay. So
She
more
gives
relevant.
him an address, which appears to be, well, we'll see, because, well, you tell the plot. I feel like there's a chunk missing from the movie in which X goes to that address and finds out where to find his wife, because he seems to bump into her randomly at a public place.
No, I mean, clearly, like, the idea is like Sever's setting him up to meet his wife. I mean, like, I'm skipping ahead again because there's like a little stuff in here that's also irrelevant. Padding. X goes to an aquarium where Gant's wife is, but it turns out, oh no, that's actually X's wife, Rain, who is alive. And what happened here?
This is
Stick
hilarious.
with me.
This is wild.
It was already hilarious enough that Rain, mad at her husband, goes to the aquarium to blow off some steam
I
and relax.
love that shit.
And X,
Here, if I'm gonna run into my wife, it's gonna be in a fucking aquarium.
better. And X, I guess, also looking to like lose himself for a moment in the beauty of the sea, shows up at the same aquarium at the same time and goes, "Oh, my wife, my dead wife, you're here."
I will say the Vancouver aquarium looks lovely, as does the rest of Vancouver in this movie that is very much set in Vancouver and makes no bones about it.
I mean, they're not even trying to pretend it's another place. It's
We'll
just
be
Vancouver.
there ourselves in January, but maybe we'll check out the
let's go to the
filming
aquarium.
locations of
Fuck
X
yeah.
Sever.
We'll take the famous Vancouver X versus Sever shooting tour. Yeah.
We get on a trolley.
So everyone shut up for a moment because we got to get through this crazy
Yeah, we
thing
don't have a
that
lot of
happened.
time.
Explain it to me, Dan.
Okay, so
Explain it.
Gant really pulled this elaborate fake out where first he explodes X's car with like X is not in the car, he's approaching the car, so he just gets
X and his wife are on either side of a driveway which has cars in it.
And this is after we find out they were friends, right? The Gant was his friend.
That Gant was X's. Well, they either worked together or were friends. Yeah.
Yes. And so
but they knew
X
each other.
Is like gonna go to his car. It blows up. He's thrown away. In the meantime, like I guess Gant like takes Rain away, like shielding her. Like, oh no, you don't want to look at that. And when like X like looks up again, the car that Rain was going to be in explodes. Thus, it's a double fake out where they
it's
both
a double fake
dead.
out. They both think this one, and neither of them follows up, holds a funeral. Any of those.
Well, fortunately, when
X doesn't even check in on his
Rain,
friend.
like she has a new name at that point.
Yeah.
She marries him
Rain,
under a different name, so he
Rain
doesn't know.
Marries Gant, and because it's one of these things where it's like, I don't understand why this happened. I don't know why they did this. I don't know how it worked. It is the kind of thing that only works in a movie, would not work in a 3-dimensional space. But also the idea that, well, a car blew up with my wife in it. I guess that's time for me to just leave.
Story.
Yeah. I also do love that Antonio Banderas looks like such a doofus back then. Like his hair, he has the dorkiest haircut.
Yes.
Modern times, he has that cool slick back,
he's got like
bad boy haircut.
Well, it's like more desperado hair.
Yeah. Now here's the thing, guys.
He has like a kind of curly Caesar cut where I'm like, that doesn't work for you, buddy.
Let me bring up the thing that I'm sure they're talking about in the chat right now. Oh, a guy is married to someone, a car blows up, and he just leaves. That's bad when it happens in Ballistic, but I guess that's okay when it happens in The Godfather. Suddenly it's not a flaw when it happens in that movie. Good point. You got me.
It's actually
You
a
got
really
me.
good
Wow.
point. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's the only place on the Venn diagram where the Godfather and Ballistic match is guy sees wife blow up and then just walks away and goes somewhere else.
Yeah. So anyway, Gant just pulled off this masterful fake out.
You got to give that dude credit, right?
Fiendishly complex. And
I don't know. He's
idiotic.
dealing with some morons here. He's dealing with people who are not really follow-uppers. You know.
Yeah. So I guess like Gant moves in on Rain. Is that the whole reason he did?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hey guys, you trick your friend into thinking his wife's dead, and you trick his wife into thinking your friend's dead. How do you open?
Anyway, so it's also revealed that Michael is actually X's son with Rain.
Yeah.
That Gant had Sever's family killed. That's another thing that happened. That's why Sever doesn't like Gant.
Sever had a child, and we presume a partner, and Gant had them all killed. Yeah.
And that Sever.
Why? We'll never know. We don't need to know. It's Ecks versus Sever, everybody. Things don't happen for reasons.
Sever actually kidnapped Michael, X's kid, to protect him from Gant. So everything is tied up in a huge
because as we know, Gant had used his not son in order to smuggle this assassin bot over across into another country, because airport security got pretty crazy in 2002, but they weren't taking blood samples from kids. So if you wanted to hide something,
they were like, well, yeah, do you have any nanobots to declare?
So now that everything has been resolved and Ecks and Sever are not versus each other anymore, they go.
That was a sweet couple of minutes. That was a sweet couple of minutes when they were versus. Now it's Ecks plus Sever.
Yeah. They go get Michael from Sever's underground high-tech cage lair, and they all reunite the family. And her lair is beneath a train yard, which I guess is just for maximum final shootout interest.
Well, like many train yards, most train yards in America have subterranean industrial sites underneath them, because a train doesn't need to have the ground doesn't need to be that solid for freight trains to roll on it. It can be pretty hollow under there. Yeah.
The good guys and bad guys like face off. There's one part where Ecks runs for cover. Like there's a bunch of exploding traps behind him, and like according to the internet trivia, Antonio Banderas actually got like burned by some pyrotechnics on the set of Ecks versus Sever.
I tell you, he got
here because it seems like that's where
he got burned by whoever advised him to do Ecks versus Sever.
Yeah.
Do you think when Almodovar heard that Antonio Banderas got burned, he's like, I got an idea for a new movie?
Burn me up, burn me down. There's a Ray Park Lucy Liu fight, which is less exciting than it should be, considering. And then Sever tosses Ray Park's character into some kind of like boiling liquid that's in her bunker, just at the same time as Gant enters and throws a grenade into that liquid. It's like such overkill. I don't know.
Fucking Viking funeral for that guy.
Yeah. Like, fuck you, Ray Park.
It's the kind of place where there's sloshing water all over the floor, and two nameless soldiers will walk into it, and Lucy Liu can shoot a wire so that it falls into the water and electrocutes them. And I was like, come on. She lives in the mousetrap type scenario. Come on, what's going on? Not the Agatha Christie play, The Mousetrap, of course, the longest running play on not on Broadway, in London. But there's no one gets electrocuted in that. Yeah.
Anyway, there's the family.
Well, people get electrocuted in the board game Mousetrap, right?
Yeah, well, no, the one guy he gets flipped into a bathtub. That's kind of like being electrocuted, right? Yeah.
The reunited family faces off with Gant, who discovers that the nanobot.
That makes it sound like the kid is fighting Gant too.
The nanobot is in Michael, and Gant's all like, "Where is it?" And Ecks is like, "Ask her." And it's Sever, and she shoots Gant in the arm, and Gant's all smug, like, "Yo, you missed." But of course, the nanobot was in that bullet,
and we know she never misses.
She pulls out a big button, pushes it, and he has a heart attack.
She might as well have just had a big
at home.
She might as well just had a big Wile E. Coyote TNT plunger that she pushed down.
Yeah. And then there's a last scene on a pier where Ecks is all like, "Thanks for reuniting me with my family and not being versus me anymore." And then the movie ends.
No, but then this is the best part: is he looks away for a moment, and when he looks back, Sever is gone. within seconds, and she's left an origami crane on the ground. And I just think it's so funny. It's like she just fly away. Like understand, like there's no possible way that she
turn
could
into the
disappear.
crane?
She
I guess
her,
so.
yeah, I guess her work on Earth was done,
Her
so
work
she
on Earth.
took her original form of an origami
Again,
crane. Yeah.
Again, it's very much like you are ripping off Hard Boiled, sir. Please don't do this.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta do our final judgment. So let's go over to our old pals, the Cassettis.
That's not what I said.
Yay!
I always forget how long it takes for them to talk.
C'était bien? Ah, alors c'était mauvais? Oui. Non. Peut-être avez-vous raison, seul Dieu peut juger. Mais Dieu est mort. Mais Dieu est mort. Alors qu'il peut passer. Alors qu'il peut passer. Des jugements définitifs.
We did it.
Okay, well, is this a good bad movie, a bad movie, or a movie you kind of liked? I'm gonna say to all our listeners and all our viewers in this case, guys, it may be fun to hear people talk about Ballistic Ecks versus Sever.
Questionable.
But public service announcement, it's not fun to watch Ballistic Ecks versus Sever. Don't do that. Just say no.
It had now
Ballistic Ecks versus Sever.
Normally when thank you for that public service announcement. Usually when a movie gets 0% of Rotten Tomatoes, I'm like, come on. There's no way. This time it has richly earned that. The question, is this a good bad movie or bad movie or a movie I kind of liked? I'm not even sure it's a movie. I watched it. I'm still not sure it's a movie. And the only thing that gives it a little bit of okayness in my mind is since it wasn't made now, there's no scene at the end where Ecks and Sever introduce some new character in the post credits that I'm supposed to know who they are that I've never heard of before. It's like, get ready.
Ballistic.
Yeah, Ballistic is here. Have you? But you haven't met up with Dunga yet. I don't know what Dunga is. I don't know who that is. I don't know what it is. So it doesn't have that. But yeah, it's just not it's one of these movies where the whole time you're watching it, you're just like, is this a real thing? What's happening? Why is this here? What's going on? What's doing this?
Why?
Yeah, I mean, it has all the look of a Cinemax action show, or maybe a CW action show. That's the Vancouver.
The C stands for
Very
Cinemax.
interesting.
CW stands for Cinemax Watcher.
Yeah. But yeah, no, this is a bad movie. I was actually kind of shocked at how unfun it was, and how I was hoping at least to get some action thrills out of it, and there were no thrills to be had at all.
I think
I do like Greg Henry is a very good bad guy. I like him. He makes some fun mean mugs. It's great.
I could see it being a fun movie to watch with a group of people to be baffled by, but there's so many better options for that. Why go to Ballistic Ecks versus Sever unless you have really experienced the gamut of all the good bad movies out there? But yeah, it is for a movie that you're watching, let's say by yourself while you're doing the dishes. It is it's disappointing how many times you have to rewind to try to catch what just happened and then realize, nothing happened. The reason that didn't make sense is because nothing made sense.
I'm pretty happy that I managed to tick this box off, though. Now I don't ever have to think of this movie ever again.
Off your bucket list.
Yeah. Yep.
Your
Time
Ballistic
to die.
bucket list. Yeah.
Time to die.
Yay!
So I think it's time to take some questions from the audience and run that video.
Who dares question the all-knowing Flophouse House Cat? Ignore those guys down there. Ask your questions and get out of here.
Seriously, folks, we do not have all night.
Row,
indeed.
Everyone. Yeah. The first question I think is going to be interesting for us. We mentioned before that this was a movie that had two Game Boy Advance, I think, games based on it. One came out long before the movie came out, and the other came out afterwards. And I've heard good things about them. So this question is from Tyler and Anthony. What other flops should have gotten 2 different Game Boy Advance adaptations?
That's a really good question.
I've got one answer for that. Wicker Man. You got your kind of point and click. I guess you can't really point and click on a Game Boy Advance the same way, but you've got one where it's a fighting game. It's a side scroller where you're just fighting women
Like
and
a
girls.
beat 'em up?
Yeah, beat 'em up. And you've got one where it's kind of like more of an RPG style, looking for clues. You got to put things together, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
I
actually a
feel-
really good answer.
I feel like Cutthroat Island would be a good one because you have some sort of like Bionic Commando style swinging mechanics that you swing from like the riggings on, and then if you had to do another one, it could be more of a sort of a sea strategy game, like you're fighting boats out in the
Like Age of Empires or something like
Yeah.
that, or
yeah.
I feel like we're not talking about a single flop, but I feel like there should be, and this isn't answering your question correctly, but I feel like you should take every single Neil Breen movie and have a fighting game where every option is a different Neil Breen character. They have the exact same moveset in every iteration.
they look the same.
They look the same.
Yeah, it's called Breen Fighter. Oh,
Yeah.
I would play that. Yeah, sure. And they have to you can use the real backgrounds from the movies since they're just all green screen backgrounds that he threw onto things.
Did you
Yeah.
see the most recent one?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, Elliot.
I really
Elliot,
want to.
It's something special.
Yeah,
I don't know.
really
It must
is.
have played somewhere out here, but I haven't heard of it playing yet out here. But maybe when it does come here. Oh boy. Here's a question that's just for me, but you guys I think could chime in at any point. This
Cool.
is from first name withheld, last initial B. So I'm going to assume this is Michael Bolton. And he says, I've heard Elliot talking about a pet crayfish he and his kids have. I'm a fish keeper, so I'm dying to know. Why this? It's a bold choice for presumably your first wet pet. Make sure you keep the tank lid on tight. They're escape artists. And I will say, this crayfish is not our first wet pet. We did have a fish for a little bit named Hermes, who lived about a year and then sadly passed. But my older son, they were doing a science project at school with crayfish. The year ended. A lot of the kids got to take home crayfishes. We got the biggest and meanest one. And oh boy, did we learn that escape artist lesson, because it would frequently get out of the tank where I would see it trying to get out. And one morning we got up, crayfish is gone. Empty tank. Where is it? We looked all throughout the house. We found
Your
it.
car keys are missing.
Wait a minute. Where's our
There's a
credit
note
cards?
from my wife. I found a new love.
We did find it all the way at the other end of the house. We keep it in the kitchen. It was all the way to the other house in my bedroom, crawling behind furniture, and it was covered in dust, and I had to rinse it off. And this crayfish hates me because to him, I'm the only one who will pick it up, and so in the family. So to me, I'm his ultimate jailer, or to her rather, because it's a female crayfish. Every time I go towards the tank, she goes like this. Hates me, but the crayfish's name is Apple Queen.
Apple Queen. I like that the chat seems as disturbed by the term wet pet as I was.
This pet is very wet all the time. So often my younger son will want me to tell stories about his ideal pet, which is a red-eyed tree frog that he has named Webby. And in the stories, Webby and Apple Queen, the crayfish, talk to each other, and Apple Queen's always like, "Yeah, well, I basically run this place." That's the way our crayfish sounds.
That's pretty cool.
And the crayfish in my version calls my 3 kids and me the little one, the medium one, and the big one. And the little one's the nice one, and the medium one they think is okay, and the big one, which is me, they hate. So anyway, here's a question that's for all of us. This is from Aaron. Have there been any movies that you were looking forward to doing on the show, but ended up not being flops commercially or critically?
I don't know.
I feel like we've gotten pretty good about not allowing those distinctions to affect our choices anymore, but
yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah, if there's something that's like silly looking, or it seems like there's something fun we could say about it, where we're like, it may not necessarily be like.
There was a period where every time Elliot and I were like, "Oh, this big budget movie looks stupid. We should do that one," and Dan's like, "Already saw it."
That happens a lot. That happens a lot.
Yeah, and
I don't. In the theater, front row, opening night.
Because I saw it in the theater, it was okay. We would have some fun, but it was not amazing. We would have liked it, and I'm like, why can't we like things once in a while?
I've gotten looser about this. Well, I'll tell you why, Elliot. I've gotten looser about this And we've done some that I've seen before, and I was like, I liked okay. Like I like Glass okay when I saw it, even though I think it's dumb. Like I still had fun. But normally I don't want to like walk in knowing that I enjoyed something and be like, even though I think that we're nice and we try not to be like dicks about like our critiques, I don't want to tar something with our brush if I know I already like it.
Yeah.
Whereas like everything else
I
is like,
see.
oh, I walk in like thinking it's probably going to be bad, but I'm pleasantly surprised when I like it, like, and I can signal boost that positivity. I don't want to, I don't know, like we have such a negative premise.
I get that. I get that. I can only think of one movie. It was both a commercial and a critical flop, but it was not a flop with one Dan McCoy, and that's Babylon, which I would have loved to have done on this show, but Dan, he hearts Babylon, so we could not do it.
I do heart
yeah.
Babylon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't want to tar potentially good movies with our brush. What's next on the show? May December.
No. Let's treat the audience. We'll tell them what's next on the show. We're gonna have Alonso Duralde back to talk about Santa with muscles.
We're gonna have our regular Christmas movie correspondent Alonso Duralde back. Talking about Santa with muscles, starring Hulk Hogan, and I just finished watching that today. And
finally, a movie without a problematic figure in the lead.
Elliot, what'd you think of it? Give me
well, we'll talk about it on the show. I will say that it is a fairly dull movie, and that at a certain point it takes a very abrupt and very wacky turn, and I was like, you know what, now this movie is worth my attention. There's a plot development that I never would have seen coming in a million years.
Okay.
Which I don't want to hype it up too much, but we'll have plenty to talk about in terms of the Hulk Hogan's inability to come off as a likable person in the film. Let's talk about a different question. Versus movies. This is from Caleb. Versus movies are my favorite genre. What's your favorite versus movie?
I don't know if I have the entire list offhand. Let me do a little search here, but I mean, probably Scott Pilgrim versus the World, right? Like
that's not pretty good one.
I feel like that doesn't quite fit the format exactly.
Yeah, you're gonna say
the Mitchells versus the Machines. Does that
that's
count?
a good one.
That's a really good one too.
It's good. Yeah,
really
that's
good.
good.
Does it have to be like actual but it's got to be a versus movie, like like
one thing
Santa
versus
Claus
another
versus a gorilla or whatever. That's
I mean, that's what Santa with Muscles should have been about. Santa Claus versus a gorilla. Santa Claus meets a Brooklyn gorilla.
The original Alien versus Predator isn't great, but it's kind of fun in its trashy way. And similarly, I feel about Freddy versus Jason, where I'm like, goofball fun. I wouldn't make big arguments for them. But if you are inclined to see a movie where, say, a Freddy is versus a Jason, you're going to get at least most of your money's worth out of it.
True.
I feel like that might be the best possible version of that premise.
I'm
not. Maybe. It's a premise that would be easy to do much worse. That's for sure.
Not Joe versus the volcano.
No,
you can say that if you want.
That the volcano would win, but let me.
You would think that would be a movie that would be interesting to watch, and then you watch it, and you're like, "Oh, this is."
We got some people were mad that we were like hard on Joe versus the volcano, which is like it's surprising to me that there's such stands out there. Like I don't dislike. It's whimsical more than it's funny.
Well, that's the thing is it feels like there should be jokes in it, and there's not jokes in it, which was hard for me to wrap my mind around. But I think I'm gonna say there's a lot of Godzilla versus movies that are really good. Godzilla versus Mothra, which the old one, which I think I first saw under the name Godzilla versus the Thing. I think when it was playing on WPIX, New York's movie station. That's one I really like a lot. Where Godzilla is still a bad guy. It's early enough in the run for that. But a bunch of good Godzilla versus movies. Okay. Here's our last question of the night because we're running a little over time. This is from Tara. What famous filming locations will you be visiting in Vancouver? And what Canadian delicacy will you be enjoying? Ketchup chips, coffee crisp, poutine? And that's as good a time as any to remind people that we are going to be in Vancouver in January. It's going to be, Wednesday, January 24th, I believe?
I believe that's correct.
Yes, we're going to be, and what movie are we doing? Do I remember?
Vancouver is Cobra, I believe.
Oh, right, Cobra.
Oh, shit.
Look, crime is the disease and he's the cure. And who knows, maybe a certain sly fellow will show up at some point.
Maybe on stage,
Fox?
original Tall Boys.
Yeah, so that's the night of, Wednesday, January 24th, we'll be in Vancouver. So guys, I mean, I'm gonna try to have poutine while we're there. I love it. I've had it before and I like it a lot. But what are you guys gonna do or have?
What are coffee chips? Is that
Coffee crisp? It says
crisps?
ketchup chips, coffee crisp.
Coffee crisp.
I don't know.
Is that a cereal?
Maybe it's like cookie crisp. Yeah, but it's coffee.
A candy bar.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I don't like the idea of ketchup chips. I'm sorry.
Can I say Tim Hortons? Does Tim Hortons count?
I mean, Tim Hortons is all over the place here now too, right?
Oh man, just took over.
Yeah, just like all those Canadian comedy people took over the American comedy industry.
Yep. Ever since you can't do that on television, they just took it all over.
It turns out you could do that on television, by which I mean take the jobs of hardworking Americans.
Did you guys see Dave Foley's in the new season of Fargo? That's crazy.
I'm gonna pick the show up again because he's in it. I'm a big fan.
I hear it's good.
And that new season of Kids in the Hall was really funny. It was a really good season. It was super.
And if
strong.
you want to see his old man penis,
if you want to see Dave Foley and Kevin McDonald nude, it's the only place you're going to be able to go to do it unless you
live in their house. Are you 100% sure those aren't prosthetics? Because I have it on good authority.
They do not seem like prosthetic men. They seem like men who are like, the funniest thing would be to see our unsightly bodies. And I say that in
unsightly is your word.
that is their attitude towards it. That they're like, this is funny because like we are not anyone's dreamboats at this point compared to like maybe where we might have been in our lives.
I guess so.
You're saying they're not on your top 5 hall pass list?
I apologize to the chat, which jumps in to defend them. I'm not saying that they are not attractive people. I just think that their idea of what is funny is like, hey, look at us.
Keep digging, Dan. Yeah, make it that they were saying it, not you.
Dan's statement does not reflect the whole of the Flophouse.
Wow.
Not at all.
Wow.
Dan does not speak for the Flophouse or the Flophouse.
I see, Stuart, this is being written down in the book. I don't have a book.
Uh-oh. Before we get the book of life and death for next year's Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. All right. But
no. It's he has one of those death notes where if he writes my name down, a demon's gonna come kill me.
Okay, so Dan, it's the end of the show. Let's end it here with us ready to tear each other apart over this issue of whether Dave and Kevin are still hot.
I say this as a middle-aged man who I don't think anyone necessarily needs to see naked. Anyway.
Well, let's put it to a vote. America, call
America, get your phones. Dial 1-800-DAN-NUDE. That's 1-800.
The thing is, I'd see it. I mean, out of just curiosity.
With that.
Sure, come on, yeah.
Yeah, if that's Pet Chow, leave a message.
just to say you have, yeah.
Dan
nude. And if you think Dan should be nude, I guess we'll kill Robin. That's the upshot of the whole thing. Yeah, that's what this hotline is for. So, Dan, guys, what did we learn from Ballistic Ecks versus Sever?
I'll tell you what I learned. I learned who Sever was and who Ecks was. Finally,
and that's information you can take with you for the rest of your life, or at least until you forget again.
Yeah.
I learned that some stones are best not kicked over and seen what's underneath.
And I learned that sometimes if someone gets blown up in front of you, you just don't feel the need to walk around to the other side of the site and see if they're okay. You just amble away and say, well, they're gone. That's it. That's what I learned.
Good to know.
Lovely. I'm glad we ended on a high note.
Yeah. Thank you all for being with us. We got one more of these things, and who knows? By next time we might get it right.
Maybe. Join us. Our next show is on Saturday, January 6th. It's the first Saturday in January, and that's the last episode of the season. The response has been really great, so we're going to talk about when we might do more, possibly if we're going to do more. But thank you so much for joining us with FlopTV. Hope we can see you again in the next episode next month, when we'll be talking about Nuki, the second worst movie I've ever seen, which I will unfortunately have to watch again for I think the third or fourth time at least for this episode.
Are you doing the summary?
Yes, I'm doing the summary for it. So it'll be like an old friend, an old enemy, and I are locking eyes again. It's me and Magneto across the chessboard. Once more, old friend.
I'm looking forward to it. But until then, I have been Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
And I'm Elliot Kalin saying thank you.
Thank you.